CTBK gives executives and owners of mid-market businesses unparalleled confidence and clarity so you can focus on strategic objectives and organizational success. Their multidisciplinary advisors, accountants, and team members have a wealth of experience and are all available and responsive to each client to ensure the most effective advice, actions, and outcomes no matter the situation or complexity level. That experience base and one-team approach, combined with integrated and efficient way of operating, enable them to be truly proactive partners, doing the best thing for their client every time. Visit ctbk.com or call 716-630-2400 to learn how CTBK can work for you.
This is Charles Barkley, and you're listening to Tim Graham and Friends. Tim, this is your last favor. Anything else is going to cost you.
Who's in the NFL here? You? You? How about you, Tim? You, Tim.
It's Tim Graham and Friends, brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and Business Consultants. I'm Tim Graham of The Athletic, here with Jonah Bronstein of Bronstein Sports Plus. And on this edition, he is Bronstein Sports Plus, because he is out on the scene. As you can tell, Jonah Bronstein is not in front of a green screen. In fact, he is at Highmark Stadium for the Section 6 championships. Jonah, what's set the scene here for this event. It's a long-standing tradition here in Western New York that these championship games are played at the Bills Stadium. And what's on tap?
Well, you know what I did is I finally moved that fake green plant that I have in my apartment, and I saw this balcony view out the window, and I thought maybe I should turn the computer around and give the viewers a little view of what I see.
Good idea.
Out my windows. Yeah.
Good idea.
No,
I'm still coming from my undisclosed Spartan location as last week, as you can tell. This is so thank you for bringing some flair. And by the way, we need some flair because otherwise this would look like a hostage video. Shawne Merriman is going to be joining us here in a little bit to talk about his Lights Out 29 MMA promotion that's coming up in a few weeks, but also to give his thoughts on the Bills. And hey, these Bills right now are for concerned Bills fans starting to look like those 20-aught Chargers teams of Marty Schottenheimer and Phillip Rivers and LaDainian Tomlinson. Great, but unable to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I think from when we're recording this, about 68, 69 hours from now, I'll be sitting right here watching the Bills play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but now I'm standing in my normal press box area, talking to you guys, and I would get down there in the field and watch the end of this Class D championship game, the first of 5 Section 6 title games going on here at Highmark Stadium. It's something they've been doing here on this field or in this stadium on various types of artificial turf surfaces for 46 years, since 1979, and won't be doing that, at least on this field in this stadium, anymore next year when the Bills move across the street to the new Highmark Stadium. A lot of doubt and questions whether that tradition will continue at the new stadium. So there's a bit of a historic.
And why is that?
Weekend.
Because of the grass field and the belief that maybe the Bills don't want somebody playing on their field?
Yeah, nothing's been announced or finalized yet, but if it does go that way, as many expect, it would pretty much be all about the grass field and the upkeep and keeping that in proper shape for the Bills to play on it, the difficulties of having to play 5 games over a 2-day span, 2 days possibly before the Bills play in the winter, in the weather and the damages that could be incurred. Now, I don't know if maybe there'll be a solution found or a newfound technology or a way in the future for that to happen. It does happen down in Pittsburgh at Heinz Field, but there's complaints about that from the different entities that use that field.
The Pitt Panthers also play on that field, which tears it up even more.
Yeah, without being totally decided yet by the section, by the Bills, by the county, by all the entities involved, it is widely assumed by many people that that won't be the case going forward. Or, well, I should say this, Section 6 officials, West New York high school football coaches will be very much pleasantly surprised if they're playing championship games on that surface across the street in the future.
Probably not working in their favor that the Bills are experiencing these types of injuries this season, because the idea of chewed up grass or a less than pristine playing surface probably would make Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott nervous. The Bills keep getting banged up, and today's injury report has Christian Benford and Taron Johnson back as full participants, which is a good sign for Sunday's game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dalton Kincaid still is a DNP, and he has been the most reliable weapon in the passing game this season. We're going to talk about the Sabres too, but and of course we're going to get into the Bills with Shawne Merriman. So maybe just touch on a few things here, Jonah, with our thoughts before we talk to Shawne Merriman. But where are you with the Bills here? 6-3, which looks good, but the Athletic has a playoff predictor, a playoff machine that has the New England Patriots at 83 or 85% likelihood of winning the AFC East. They're not only a game and a half ahead heading into tonight's game against the New York Jets, so you're probably looking at a 2-game cushion over the Bills. The Patriots have the easiest remaining NFL schedule at like 330. Their combined winning percentage of the teams left on the Patriots schedule is just rock bottom. So easy schedule. They still haven't had their bye yet. They have their bye right before they play the Bills in Foxborough. The Bills have already had their bye. They're banged up. They can't get rest. They seem to be trying to, patch things together with bubble gum and chicken wire and a little masking tape. They've lost 3 of their last 5. So Tampa Bay is a tough opponent, even though the Patriots just beat them. What is your take on this? What's the framing of the Bills here as we enter week 11, 2025?
Well, as far as catching the Patriots and potentially winning the division, I don't think that's a ship that's sailed already. The Patriots have won 6 games in a row and are playing well, but I don't know if they're going to win another 6 games in a row and go into the playoffs on a 12-game winning streak and win all of the games. The Bills go down to Foxborough. They're going to need the Patriots to lose to somebody else. You noted that it's a rather easy schedule. The Patriots do have a game against the Ravens coming up after the Bills. So there's an opportunity for the Bills to catch the Patriots win total and in the standings. That loss to the Dolphins really is going to hurt the Bills in tiebreakers, and there could be a scenario where the Bills do beat the Patriots, do catch them record-wise, and still don't win the division title because of this loss to Miami. That would be a real kick in the junk, I think. I wish I said this 2 weeks ago, because I think I would have sounded a lot smarter, because I was thinking it around that time before the Chiefs game that, there was a lot of talk about the Bills need to beat the Chiefs. They need to catch the Chiefs. They need to have home field advantage in the AFC Championship game, and that's the path to the Super Bowl. The real shame of this season will be if the Bills don't win the division, and it's looking like that's a long shot now, because then you won't have a home playoff game here in the wild card round, at least, and probably
the last
won't
game
have,
might be against the Jets with everybody rested.
very well,
Or maybe
might
the
be.
Bills need to win that game.
Yeah, well, maybe that makes that game a little more meaningful and worth watching and attending and getting emotionally invested in beyond the stadium. It also would have been an odd situation if we, say farewell to the stadium in week 18, only to turn around and be back there for a playoff game, maybe 6 days later on a Saturday. But, so I really do think this fan base and this culture and this team sort of deserve that send off in the playoffs. And early in the season, the way it was going, it looked like the Bills were in the driver's seat for home field advantage and having that AFC Championship game here, multiple home playoff games, and now they're really scratching out to hopefully get just one. And against the odds that they'll be able to do that, it does set up an intriguing scenario that the seedings don't look this way now, but it could land this way. And I think this would be a lot of fun if it did play out storyline wise, where the Bills could be starting the playoffs as the top wild card, going on the road, playing maybe in Baltimore as the division winner on the road in that round, but they could still wind their way back to hosting the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. If the Bills and the Chiefs are wild card teams that keep winning, the Bills would have that home field advantage against another wild card team. And I don't know if that's a scenario I would bet on, but it's not implausible. That really could happen, and that would be a lot of fun if it worked out that way.
That would be. The Chiefs are scratching also to stay in it. They are currently out of the playoff picture because of that loss to the Bills and, of course, the earlier losses. They're going to have to climb back in.
Well, so to wrap it up, I think it's not hopeless for the Bills, and I think that I don't think the Patriots are going to win every game they play against every team. So there's maybe going to be some opportunities to catch those teams, catch other teams, pull even, tiebreakers, things like that. But all of the rosy scenarios for the Bills now seem to involve the Bills winning almost every game that they play. And then, they got to beat the Tampa Bay here with Baker Mayfield, who they're struggling a little bit, but that's one of the NFL's better teams and not a walkover game. Then a short week down to Houston. Joe Burrow might be playing by the time they play the Bengals. They still have the Philadelphia Eagles on the schedule, that Patriots game. So the Bills are almost in a position where they need to run the table here to accomplish their goals for the season and don't have the easiest schedule for rolling off however many wins, 7 or 8 wins that they're going to need down the stretch.
Yeah, Houston is a really good defensive team, but CJ Stroud has been out with a concussion. He's going to miss Sunday's game. He's already been ruled out. So does he come back on 4 days in between? Or do the Bills avoid CJ Stroud on that Thursday night game down in Houston, then at Pittsburgh, Cincinnati at home, at New England, at Cleveland, Shedeur Sanders, then Philadelphia, and then the Jets at home in the final game, possibly the final game at Highmark Stadium.
So I think the Bills are going to win more of those games than they're going to lose, and they're going to have a winning record, and they're going to make the playoffs, but they're up against it and need to play a lot better and need to reverse a lot of concerning trends, I think, to be a team that's hosting playoff games and making a run at the Super Bowl.
Concerning trends with the hockey team also, the Sabres are 5-7-4 heading into tonight's game against the Colorado Avalanche. They are 0-2 to start this 4-game road trip, of course, without Rasmus Dahlin, who went back to Sweden to be with his fiancée. We don't really know exactly what circumstances are going on, but she did have that heart transplant during the offseason. The Sabres say she's going to be okay, or I should say Lindy Ruff said she's okay, but that they fully support Rasmus going back to be with his fiancée. And other players performing poorly. Tage Thompson not doing well, Alex Tuck not doing well. The rumor mill is starting to churn. The Sabres have not won on the road yet this year. For all the talks of points and getting some momentum, as we've talked about here, and they've actually been downright enjoyable to watch on certain nights. That hasn't been the case since our last episode. They're 0-4-2 on the road this year. And their last regulation win at home or anywhere was October 24th. That was against Toronto. So we're going on, 3 or 4 weeks without a regulation win, home or on the road. And then Avalanche, of course, are pretty good. So, yeah, here we're back to hate watching the Sabres again. The pendulum swings back to it's more interesting when the Sabres lose. Then if they're not going to get momentum, and they're not going to make a move, if they're not going to get into and I don't mean move like a trade, if they're not going to get something going here, then it's more interesting if they just totally collapse. And we're back to that.
Well, that's been the case with this franchise in the last several seasons, that they seem to have more to talk about and more to analyze and dissect and get interested in when the wheels are falling off. They're last place in the Eastern Conference. They're 30th in the NHL, near the bottom in the whole league, closer to winning the lottery than making the playoffs and those type of projections. I don't know if they are the worst team in hockey, and with their full lineup and fully healthy, I don't think they're near the bottom of the league, but they're back to being maybe the most depressing team in hockey in the most depressing situation, and wondering, can they dig out of this? And it seems like they can't dig out of this far enough to make the playoffs. And as you alluded to, at what point do they start looking ahead, looking at the trade deadline as sellers, looking at making changes in management or things like that? Or, do they go all out and make a buyer's type trade to try to reverse course in the season and get back into the playoffs? They haven't been able to pull off those trades in past seasons when they've needed to do that. And at what point do you not let a potentially outgoing general manager and decision-making regime make those type of deals? The Sabres are getting pretty close to having to make some hard decisions about where they're going after the season and what that means for their behavior the rest of the season.
How did they determine and again, you don't have to identify the franchise goalie, who's going to be your netminder backstop for the next 5 to 7, 8, 9, whatever. But who, if they had to pick a guy, who do you think it would be right now?
For what? Because if they're to play the
Just
game
to be
tomorrow, it's Alex
their
Lyon.
goaltender,
Yeah.
like, all right, you're our guy. Like, we're going to invest in you, whether it be for this season or we're going to need to invest in you for 2026, 2027 season already. We're already looking down the road. Is it Levi? Is it Lyon? Who is it?
Well,
I
if
think
they're
UPL's
in the
done, right?
moment trying to win games right now with Alex Lyon, I don't think they're done for the future with UPL, but he's not the guy that they can count on night to night to help them win games in the moment. I think
Haven't
if they
we
get,
learned enough?
yeah, but with the contract they're paying him and just in this season, he hasn't played a ton of games in the season. He probably needs a longer stretch to prove that he's healthy and to see whether he's the goalie that he's been this year and at times last year or the goalie that he was 2 years ago. I don't think you can just cut him off and stop playing him. But
He'll
the
be
Devin Levi,
27 before the end of the season,
well,
I just wanted to
yeah,
state that
but he's under
for the record.
contract and he's on the team, and I don't think you just stop playing him because he's playing poorly.
No, you trade him.
To play who else?
Trade him.
Well, yeah, I think you could trade him, yeah, but I don't know who they can trade him to and what they can get for him. Yeah, well, if that's where you're going with this, I think if the Sabres are giving up on the season and looking ahead to the future, that is a trade that they would entertain among other trades and other start over type moves. And getting Devin Levi up here and playing regularly as an NHL goaltender and giving him that opportunity, seeing what they have there and allowing him to develop it through his struggles at the NHL level, if they occur, would be a goal of the second half of this season. But, I don't know if the Sabres are there yet. I don't know if they can maybe wait on that. Maybe it's better to have Devin Levi continue to have success in Rochester and bring him up to the NHL next season. But who knows if the next decision-making group on this team regards Devin Levi as the goaltender of the future. They probably don't regard Luukkonen as the goaltender of the future. So a lot of that depends on who's making the decisions at what point in time. And then you go from there. It's very possible that none of these goaltenders are the Sabres goaltender of the future. And none of these players, well, I shouldn't say none of them, but not very many of these older players are part of the future core. And if there is any leadership changes or a new management structure, they're probably going to come in and move out most all of these guys and bring in a lot of new players and draft picks and prospects. And it'll be a whole new group of Sabre youths that will be learning and paying attention to. I do think some of the young prospects, Zach Benson and players they drafted recently, would be part of the future core, but not very many of the 25 and older players and players with bigger contracts, I think, would survive a management shakeup. And survive's not really the word. They would probably, Rasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson would want to go elsewhere for the rest of their careers if the Sabres are resetting and rebuilding again.
Well, that's what the Sabres do. They reward you for time served. They have a tendency to just go ahead and get rid of guys who happen to be really good because they feel sympathy towards them. All right, let's go on. Time for you, Tage Thompson, to go out and win something. Go on, Rasmus Dahlin, fly out of the nest. Go win your Stanley Cup somewhere. But I also, I mean, I know I say that facetiously, but nobody on this team should be untouchable. The problem is that these trades all have to add up in some sort of master plan that I don't have any confidence that Kevin Adams or Lindy Ruff have at the moment. Unlike, and that's not to say that it was all worked out in his mind before that team in 06, 07 came together, or 05, 06. But Darcy Regier did have a plan of moving Gratton for Briere as a precursor to getting Drury some way, requiring Reinprecht and turning that into, all these different moves so meticulously. And by some of it's by accident. You don't know that every trade's going to work out the way it does, but Darcy Regier building that team so meticulously and having every little part line up. The Sabres are just patching things together on the fly. And I just don't see and have never seen any kind of master plan building towards what this team is supposed to be, whether it even be within a given season or 2 or 3 down the road. So if they're just managing assets, which it seems like they've been doing, they're just managing assets, some good, some bad, some middling, but they never seem to formulate something that looks like a strategy for roster building. Also, I mean, we'll wrap it up here, Jonah. I know you need to get down on the field there for cover some high school foosball,
A
but
little bit of time.
another team that seems to have backed into some success that the Sabres would love to be able to back into. UB basketball is 3-0. We wouldn't have seen this coming. And it's not as though they're beating all these ranked teams, but they did start off with a win over Southern Miss and then Green Bay. We talked about that. Green Bay and Doug Gottlieb, not that great, but the Bulls handle that game. And then they go to Chicago and beat DePaul by 7 points, or excuse me, by 13 points. They have RIT, which is that's a freebie on Saturday. So we're looking at 4-0 probably heading into Tuesday against Vermont at Alumni Arena. I mean, you know it better than I do. What's your take on UB basketball right now?
Yeah, they also have that exhibition against Syracuse where they lost by 10 points, which is a loss, but
Respectable, though.
But it was respectable in the second half that they came back. They got that game pretty close, about 4 points in the last couple of minutes. Went toe-to-toe, won the second half with Syracuse. I think it's a little early to really make some judgments about how good this team is in terms of contending in the MAC and how many games they can win in postseason and things like that. But it's a very encouraging start that with a somewhat new group, they do have some players back, including Ryan Sable, who's been their leading scorer and best shooter in most of these wins. But, an older group with some new players and a different mix and utilizing the NIL funds that they do have now, even though it's not quite as much as some other schools, but it was enough for them to do some solid recruiting in the transfer portal and get players that fill certain roles for the team that were needed and older players that have won at different levels, NAIA, Division II, and things like that. And it's paying off so far. And I think the most impressive thing that I've seen from them isn't necessarily any of their wins in isolation. It's the consistency that they've shown in going 3-0 and having a good game against Green Bay and not letting it slip away on the road and playing poorly and not losing focus on defense and things like that. Because that's been a little bit of what we've seen from this team the last couple of years when they've mostly lost, but they've had some games where they played well and lost valiantly. And then the next game down 20, 30 points at halftime, or games where they had a really good half and a really bad half. And the fact that they've played maybe 6 good halves against different opponents at home and on the road is encouraging for them to not, to avoid having a poor season. And then we'll see as the games go along how good that season can really be. And, St. Bonaventure is also 3-0. Canisius is 2-2. All of these teams seem to be improved in some ways from last year. I haven't seen Niagara yet, but I've heard their group might be a little bit better than what they've had in the last year or two. So these schools are figuring out how to find players in the transfer portal, how to roster build in this new era of college basketball. And I don't know how high the ceiling is, but the floor that was bottoming out, especially for Canisius Niagara over the years, is maybe raising a little bit, and we could see some more competitive basketball from all 4 of the schools.
Yeah, the biggest surprise, though, for me is UB and their coach, George Halkovich, who has not shown much since he replaced Jim Weitzel, but 3-0 start, and I think that's a quality win in Chicago over DePaul. And I know we were making fun of Green Bay, and they're not a very good program, but I mean, that's still, it's not as though they're beating Deauville, which just seems like those were UB's victories. We're coming against, just their, like, Saturday's opponent, RIT. Anywho's, any other notes before we take a quick break and get to Shawne Merriman, Jonah?
That's about all I can think of covering these high school games and the scene out here. UB football lost last night. They're not out of it yet. In fact, they're still tied for second place in the MAC. But in order to win the MAC, they're definitely going to need to win their last 2 games, both at home, and had their worst loss of this, or their most lopsided loss of the season last night in MAC play. So the vibes aren't great around that team, but I like the coaching, and I do think they bounce back from losses well. So they're probably in a good position to get that 6th win, go to a bowl game, and maybe sneak their way into the MAC title game if they get hot and win these last 2 games. All
right. Let's take this quick break, and we come back. We're going to have NFL legend Shawne Merriman, and I should say NFL legend and MMA promoter now. Get to him about that cutthroat business when we come back.
The financial needs of a business go beyond tax and attest services. That's why CTBK goes beyond accounting services and offers outsourced solutions through their affiliation with CFO Solutions Plus. These additional services allow clients to focus on their operational and long-term strategic goals. Trust CTBK's outsourced solutions to provide cost-effective, value-added financial services tailored to your company's needs. Call CTBK at 716-630-2400. Again, 716-630-2400. Or go to ctbk.com to learn more about CTBK's outsourced solutions.
Hi, I'm a fucking nobody, and you're listening to Tim Graham and Friends.
As promised, we're joined now by edge rush legend, former Buffalo Bill, although, I mean, really, it's not what he's known for. Former San Diego Chargers legend, Shawne Merriman. Actually, Sean, are you a former Buffalo Bills legend?
I don't know about that, but I got all my boys. I got all my boys here. So they think I'm a legend. I'm good with that.
All right. There is proof of life there with the Bills. San Diego Chargers legend for sure. I mean, one of the biggest splashes anybody's ever made on the defensive side of the ball when you came into the NFL from Maryland. Hey, Sean, Jonah, we've been talking about it before you came on. Jonah is out at Highmark Stadium, as you can see behind him. He is out there for the Section 6 high school football championships. What is your high school pinnacle game? Because I know sometimes a lot of guys who are great, you would assume like, well, they played for this championship, that championship, but you don't always.
Right.
You were at Frederick Douglass. That's a great school in the DC area. But what was your high school experience as a team making a run for a title?
Man, it was awesome. Even though we never won a state championship, we had a lot of players out of the DMV area, that PG County area, and we went to, I guess, one of my most memorable moments I had against a school called Damascus. I had 22 tackles, and I had 2 touchdowns and an interception. I mean, it was brick cold out there. And I just literally about 3 months ago, I ran into their former head coach out, and he said, "Hey, I know you don't remember me, but I was the head coach of Damascus." And my eyes got this big because I knew what the next conversation was going to be because I lit those guys up, man. But I think there's nothing like high school football. It really is, man. There's a different level of passion and emotion and really rawness still because that NIL stuff hasn't gotten down to them just yet. So, yeah.
I did notice in your Maryland bio, I go back and look at those because that is where you can see the most, I think, about a high school career. Because the college media guide is going to load you up on your high school accolades, even more so than me scouring through the Washington Post. And it did mention that in 2000, Frederick Douglass went 10-0, but it made it a point to say in the regular season. Now, the journalist in me says that there was an awful postseason game in there, right? There was to make it a point to say regular season and not mention what happened next. So what happened that year?
Yeah, I think I got to run back to 2000. It was 25 years ago. I think we lost in the second rounds or something like that in the playoffs. But it's crazy because I actually was I was the first Division I player ever to come out of my high school, and it was I think the upside of that is right after I went, it was one player just about every year after me, so I kind of put us on the map. But yeah, man, we had a squad. We had a squad. We just couldn't get over that hump like my former team. So I think there's a lot of similarities there with that one.
Yeah, I can only imagine because of how you came into the NFL, as I said earlier, like what you were like as a high school player. You were also a decorated basketball player too. I know the Washington Post had you on one of their all defensive team. I think you have averaged 16 rebounds or something like that your senior year. But
yeah, I was like a 16-16 guy, 16 and 14, and
Jesus.
And basketball was tough. There was a lot of like Kevin Durant. We played through the same AAU team. Michael Beasley, Nolan Smith, DeMar Johnson, Jack Johnson also came from out of there. So I probably can name 15 more names, but that PG counter, that I would just say that DMV area was just loaded with basketball talent. So for me to squeeze up in there as as a top guy coming out of in basketball. I don't know how that happened or who liked me on that panel to get me up in there, but I was.
Yeah, I think 16 plus rebounds is what did it. Hey, Sean, we're going to talk about Lights Out 29, which is coming up on December 6th out in California. You're going to be able to watch it on Lights Out TV, and we're going to talk about that card. But if we can, Sean, you mentioned that team that can't get over the hump. You already showed us the jersey. I mean, there's no, I mean, well, I mean, I guess we could be talking about the Chargers too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the Bills, 3 losses in their last 5 games. They keep the coaches get up there and say, hey, they're saying all the right things. The players too. Hey, we're 6-3. It's almost like they're trying to talk themselves up a little bit. Like, hey, we are still in this. The algorithms and the math show that I think the Patriots have like an 86% chance of winning the division, which you would have thought that was one of the safest bets in sports heading into the season was the Bills in the AFC East. What have you seen from these guys here?
You know, first and foremost, you only have you have about a 4-year window to go to win a championship because when you do, the things change. When you don't, things change, right? You got coaches gone, front office gone. That second in command of GM, he's going to get he's going to be the #1 guy somewhere else. Your star wide receiver is going to go. Defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators going to go get a job somewhere else. So you got about a 4-year window to keep that team together before it's dismantled. And I think they're approaching that right now. And that's why you got to at least get one. And I'm speaking from experience. You know, you talk about my San Diego Charger days. I mean, we between 2005 and 2009 or 2006 and 2010, however you look at those teams, we should have at least won one, if not two. Because after that, the team just broke up. LT left, and Darren Sproles left, Michael Turner left. I mean, it was, people were just in and out of there, and then I ended up leaving and then going to the Bills. And so I think that the Bills currently right now, they're running up against that clock. And, there's just some games this year that you can't lose because it's going to bite you later on during the season. And then we saw against the Ravens opening, the start of the season, what they can do, their ability to come back, their ability to rally. And when you start to see these games drop that they should have won, you get less and less, behind them, or you just lose your confidence. And are they going to be able to turn this thing around?
Jonah, I didn't want to filibuster here with Sean.
I was just listening to what he was saying. I wanted to ask Sean if he'd been part of a team in San Diego or around in the NFL comparable to what the Bills situation are in now, where they started off very well, playing very well, Super Bowl favorites, got away from them in October, November, where we are now, and got it back later in the season. How often have you seen that in playing or being around the NFL in the last few decades?
It normally, in my experience, I'll take our 2017 with the Chargers. I think we started off 1-3. So a lot of those things happen early on during the season, and that switch comes, and then you find out who you are, you turn things around, and then you continue on and flip it during the season. It doesn't happen much during the middle of the season because as you get closer to the playoffs, you're either going this way or you're going that way. You're going up or you're going down. And you want to be excelling. You want to be treating up going into the playoffs, not barely getting in or barely making it. And I think that's where they're at right now. They started off against the Ravens. They had some, they shown what they could do. And now it just seems like they're dropping games that they should win. So typically it happened for the most part in the beginning of the season. Guys are trying to figure it out. Take the Kansas City Chiefs, for example. I mean, everybody was jumping off the bandwagon the first 3-4 weeks. Oh, this is not the same team anymore. They're not dominant no more. And what do? They found a way to turn it around. So it happens, that bad start, and then teams figure it out like, game 4, game 5. It doesn't happen game 8, 9, and 10. It just doesn't.
Sean, there are some I don't want to say parallels because it has to work itself out. These guys have to finish their careers, but I'm thinking of your time with San Diego and always, Phillip Rivers, one of the greatest quarterbacks to never. Marty Schottenheimer, maybe the greatest coach to never. LaDainian Tomlinson, however you want to put it in there. The Bills seem to have some of those guys now. You're wondering if Shawne McDermott is now the greatest coach to never win it, to get there. Not let alone win it. Marty never got there, right? And Philip never got there. Is Josh Allen now the next Philip Rivers, where you're talking about, well, can you be in the Hall of Fame and never have reached the Super Bowl? And as it stands right now, there are only two in the Hall of Fame who didn't play in a Super Bowl. Another San Diego Charger, Dan Fouts, and Warren Moon. Where do you lived with those teams and those guys. How does those caveats sit with you? Because I'm sure they probably hurt to at least a little degree, right? That you had it all that could have gotten it done, and it just shows how difficult it is to do it.
That's the biggest. Obviously, I want to be a Super Bowl champion. I want to be a part of a Super Bowl championship team. One of my biggest regrets is not being able to get Philip one. And because I know how that Hall of Fame panel and the fans and people who evaluate who should get it or not, I know how they look at that. And, this is not a shot at Eli at all, because I do think that Eli was a really good quarterback. But you look at his winning percentage, you look at his yards, you look at the numbers, it's not even close to Philip. Not even close. But there's a conversation on who should get in first, Eli or Phil. And I always think that the Hall of Fame is a individual award that everyone's trying to say, hey, well, they didn't win a Super Bowl. Well, a Super Bowl is a team accolade. And so I think you got to start to separate it. And, you named the two quarterbacks who were tremendous quarterbacks who didn't get there. But you have to start looking at the grand scheme of things. And also, too, I think that a lot of people looking at this thing differently is because of Tom Brady and how many Super Bowls he won. The Joe Montanas of the world, those guys, Peyton, I think, having two, and Eli having two. So I get how people are looking at it from the grand scheme of things, but the Hall of Fame is an individual award, period.
The Bills also, you were talking there about trending up, trending down at his news conference on Wednesday to explain why the Bills didn't do anything at the NFL trade deadline. Brandon Beane talked about how injuries were a problem and have been a problem, and knocked on wood, hoping that they didn't have any more. And 2 hours later, their top cornerback ends up on the injury report because he hurt himself in practice. And then 4 days later, their top target, Dalton Kincaid, has a hamstring injury, so now he's out. I don't know. The trend doesn't look good. How do you deal with it psychologically when you keep losing good teammates?
It's you always got to have a balance, because you don't want to make an excuse for yourself, right? Oh, we should have been a lot better. We didn't have our guys. And I'll use the Chargers in this standpoint, because you have a Rashawn Slater who went down before the season started, who arguably is the best left tackle in football. You got Joe Alt that got moved from right tackle to left tackle. He went down. You got Najee Harris who went down for the season. And right after him, Omarion Hampton, he goes down with a ankle sprain. Khalil Mack is out at the same time. And so they look shaky for 2-3 weeks, where they just didn't look like a good team at all. And they brought in the pass rusher there from the Ravens, Ofer, right? They brought him over from the Ravens. He came over and provided. I think he got a sack his first game out there. He's 3 or 4 sacks now, 4 games in. And so you got to figure it out, because you can't let this thing linger. Because if it does linger, you can never recoup. I mean, you almost got to start setting up for next year. It's very hard as a player to walk in that locker room every single day knowing that you ain't got all your horses, that no matter what you do, you won't get there, because it's almost like you're showing up to a gunfight with a slingshot. And you can't do it. And that's what they have right now. They're showing up to a gunfight with a slingshot. They don't have all their horses, and they can't. Even when we talk about the playbook, I mean, I feel bad for McDermott, because how are you going to run what you built this season before the season? You got to start game planning when you got these guys on the field. Now you don't have them there anymore. So now you got to make these in-season adjustments that it's going to be hard for them to do.
And the players know. The players know, they, like you say, to not have the horse. The player, you can use all the sports psychology you want, and next man up to yourself until your face turns blue. But at some point, the players realize this isn't our year, right? And you have to fight that on a week-to-week basis or a day-to-day basis sometimes.
Yeah, and that's why you have the leaders in a locker room. You have those leaders have to step up because it is really easy to fall into a dark place when you're in that position. Um, Everybody that negative the attitudes get negative real quick, and guys start caring less, start giving less effort, and you have to get your leaders in the locker room to start to kind of rile everybody up, get everybody together, not to go down there and just fight until you guys figure it out. The problem is they got so many down. They got so many of their starters and so many of their weapons down. Who you gonna fight with, right? Who are you coming to the fight with? And that's gonna be key.
Sean, I haven't played in this stadium that the viewers can see over my shoulder. I did want to call back a little bit and ask you some memories about playing in here, but also and state the obvious a little bit. I mean, how important is it for the Bills to be able to play playoff games in this stadium in this last season with the situation that they have, and then you as a former player and the fans, and to see that happen one more time for this team?
They got the best fans in football, and I don't even think it's close. And I've personally seen that stadium and that city on fire. When we beat the Patriots, when we got to Tom Brady 4 times and we're just hitting them all over the place, I've never seen an atmosphere like that when we beat the Patriots that year. So there's no fans like them. But it's going to be hard because when we talk about the negative attitudes and people getting down on themselves and falling into the dark place, the fans also could get that way because you start losing hope. I mean, when it's before the season starts, every team fan base, you all know you're 0-0. Everybody got a chance to win a Super Bowl. But we all know there's only about 8 teams really they got a real shot at it, and the Bills one of them. And so it's as this season progresses, and those that gets a little darker, the fans, they'll always show up. They're always going to show up no matter what. I remember when I got there, I think they were 0-5 or 0-6 or whatever the record was, and I remember looking up in the stadium, and the stadium just packed. And I said, this is unreal. If we go 0-6 or 0-5 in San Diego, we're gonna have 12 people there, and I'm talking about including the coaching staff. Ain't nobody coming. We had to win football games. So they have they got a great fan base out there, and the players cannot keep going down this road in order to keep that fan base, give them some light at the end of the tunnel.
And it did take you a little while when you said when you got here, and it did take you a little while to get here, as I recall. There may have been a couple of days in which Shawne Merriman was thinking things through, and thinking about what he wanted to do with his life after the Bills picked him up on waivers.
Yeah, well, $25,000 fine a day will get you there. So, but it was, man, it was one of the best experiences I had in my life, and I wouldn't change anything because those are some special people out there.
Sean's joining us because we're going to talk about his Lights Out 29 event that is coming up in Long Beach, California on December the 6th. And of course, most of the folks here listening or watching Tim Graham and Friends won't be in Long Beach. They're Western New York based, but you can watch it on Lights Out TV, which is quite a venture, Sean. I mean, before we get into the card on December 6th, how is this promotional endeavor going for you? Because the very first time you were on this podcast was Lights Out 10. So here we are, you're still at it and thriving. What's this experience been like? Because look, I covered boxing forever, and they can't be too much different. And it is a cutthroat line of work.
Well, I played in the NFL, and I don't know if it get more cutthroat than that. So I did take some things that I've learned over the years, playing for the NFL and also working with them and still staying around it. But this has always been what I was going to do when I got done. And it was just only a matter of time before I got a chance to launch my own organization that now we're one of the fastest growing, promotions in the country. Outside of being on Lights Out Sports TV, we're also on UFC Fight Pass. We're on Fubo. We're on Amazon Freeview, beIN Sports. And hopefully by next week or two, I'll be able to announce our really potential big partnership, broadcast partnership that's going to take us internationally all over the world. And that was always my goal to create something out of this Lights Out brand. I knew TV and production like the back of my hand, and I love the sport. I mean, I was training this was before MMA really caught fire. I think it was like 2011. There was a boxing gym out there, but I was actually doing in Buffalo that I was training MMA. I had a MMA guy to come down from Niagara Falls, and I would spar him in Buffalo during the off season. So it was great, man, and to see these guys get an opportunity to go to the UFC. Um, having my own network now that is live on, that we have a ton of free live sports. You guys download Lights Out Sports TV, available on every smart TV, iOS or Android. Ton of free live sports there. We're gonna add about 20 more channels over this next 30 days. But yeah, we got a massive card coming up December 6th. I know, you guys out there in Western New York won't be able to see it, but you can download it and watch us live starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
Jake Babian is going for the 170-pound title. And as you were telling me before we started, you may not have him for very much longer because of how good he is. And that's good for your business that you're sending these guys on into the bigs. And also intriguing, Sam Fournier, the 6'6" kickboxer.
Yeah.
How does he get that thing around? And his reach, does he just stand in one corner and just spin and take everybody out, or what?
So as far as Jake, he just had a fight, I think 2 cards ago, but his last 3 fights before that, no fight went longer than I think 40 seconds. It was one like 26, one was 10 seconds. I think he had a 7-second knockout. And one thing he does that, kind of drives me crazy, he rushes people out the gate. He rushes people right away. His last fight that he had against Saad that actually went a couple rounds, I was talking to him, right after the weigh-ins. I said, Jake, you may not want to rush Saad because he's experienced. I don't know. And he's like, yeah, kind of shook his head. The first thing he did is took off running, rushing him right when the fight started. And then you talk about Sam Fournier. He's somebody told me he was tall, but I don't see some of these guys in person until we get to the face-offs. And normally, there's a bunch of guys that's 5'6". We got some heavyweights. Tyrell Fortune, who's our heavyweight champion right now. He's our heavyweight. He's pound for pound #1 heavyweight in the country. We got big guys, but Sam, I kind of was noticing when they were doing the face-offs, and I was like, I had my head up just a little bit, and I'm 6'4.5", almost 6'5". So, I'm looking up at him, and I said, dude, this dude is tall and he's long. And I think he has an opportunity to be a champ one of these days. So what we try to do is get these guys an opportunity. If they become champions for us, we know at some point they're probably going to get a call from the UFC or Dana White Contender Series. I mean, we've had four fighters to go to the UFC in the last 40 days. 2 for Dana White Contender Series, and we had 2 in the actual UFC, and all of them won. Santiago Luna, John Paul, Chris Alvidrez. I mean, we've had these guys that step in, and they all winning. So we want to keep pushing them there. And then 2, growing our own community and fan base. Well, we have no need to compete with the UFC. We have great tech partnerships. We got chips in the gloves is coming with Shot Tracker that can measure speed, power punch, and G-force. Really cool stuff with data and all kind of things included. And then our AI sponsorship, the AI advertising, where the sponsors change on the mat. So, fans will be seeing a different sponsor in Buffalo as opposed to a different sponsor being seen in California. So we got different things that we got an entire angle in this. And also former athletes. We've got a show coming with former athletes from other sports. A couple of former NFL guys is transitioning into MMA.
Can you drop any names on us?
Not yet, because it's not announced, but it's the pilot's done, and we're pitching it as part of the package to the network right now, and we think this is going to be a game changer. It's a lot of these former NFL guys that played 2-3 years, they maybe played in the Big Ten, SEC, or ACC, and I said, hey, football didn't work out for me. I'm not getting another call from a team, and they tell the agent like, hey, I'm going to go fight. I'm not getting the calls from teams anymore. I want to go train. So we're getting a lot of those type of guys that want to get in the cage and make a name for themselves there.
What's the scouting process like for Lights Out? Where do you find your guys?
Believe it or not, when I very first launched, and this is me being honest, people knew me as a football player. They knew who I was, but they didn't know about Lights Out Extreme Fighting. So they were hesitant. There was obviously other promotions and organizations that have been around a lot longer than us. But every 6 months or so, we're starting to climb a little bit on the local scale, and we got very regional, and then hopefully, we get very U.S. based and internationally here with this big broadcast partner. We're really pushing to make it happen in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, we can be live December 6th for this new broadcast partner we're working with, and that's going to put us on a national and international scale, and that's what we wanted, because we feel that we have the ability to grow in this sport and do some things that's just not there.
Well, Shawne, thank you for this. It's nice of you to drop by again, and we look forward to having you back. Good luck with the show on December 6th. That is Lights Out 29 in Long Beach, California. Check out lightsoutxf.com. You can get all the information there on where you can watch it. Hell, maybe you're going to be in Southern California. You want to check it out. You buy your tickets, check out all the fighters there, their bios, their backgrounds, some incredible stories in addition to the talent that is on this card. So, Shawne, thank you for this. Thanks for your thoughts on the Bills, and best of luck.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks to everybody out there for watching and listening to Tim Graham and Friends, brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and Business Consultants.
Thank you.